Hey friends, today we're going to make a pumpkin character. You will need a pencil, a piece of paper, some crayons, and some watercolor paints. If you don't have watercolors, then you can color with crayon or some other coloring material. Let's begin with the contour or outline of the pumpkin. I'm going to draw a really large kind of fat circle. And at the top, I'm going to take my line and bring it down and have it dip down and then back up a little bit. And then erase the top of that circle and then add my stem. Straight line up, kind of curved a little bit. And if you want to, while we're here at the stem, go ahead and add some texture lines to make it look like the vine of the pumpkin. Next, we're going to add the lines that are on the surface. Straight line down from the middle, in the middle of the pumpkin. And then as I draw the lines moving towards the side, I'm going to slightly curve these lines in the same way that this side of the pumpkin is curved. Same thing on this side. Slightly curve in the other direction in the same way that this edge of the pumpkin is curved. Next, I'm going to pick some shapes for the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. What kind of face do you want your pumpkin character to have? What kind of shapes can you use for the eyes, nose, and mouth? I think for this one, I might create something a little bit different, a little bit interesting. Instead of a triangle, maybe a different shape, like a diamond. And if you notice, I am going to have to erase the lines that are going through the diamond shapes for my eyes. My diamond-shaped eyes make my pumpkin look a little scared. So I think for the mouth, I might make wavy line, like my pumpkin character is a little scared. Oh no! Maybe I'll add some pupils to make it look even more scared. Wide open pupils. And if I add some eyebrows curving up and down, it looks even more scared. I'm gonna erase the lines inside the mouth. I'm gonna next add a nose. I think I might add the same shape as the eyes for the nose, but instead of the diamond being vertical, it's horizontal. After you've added the face to your pumpkin character, if you want to add arms or legs or feet, you could, or you could leave your pumpkin with a face. And then you're ready for outlining. We're going to outline in a crayon that is a darker color than the color that we're going to use to paint or color in the pumpkin, like a brown or a black. I'm going to outline the pumpkin in brown and then outline the features in a black color. Before I paint, I'm going to add a line that will show where the sky meets the ground, adding a little background. You can add any kind of background you want. Now it's time to paint. If you don't have watercolors, you could just color with some crayons or markers or colored pencils. If you do have watercolors, I would set your water cup really close to your paints and really close to your drawing. To make my pumpkin look three-dimensional, I want to paint one side of it a little bit of a darker value than the other so it looks round. So as I begin painting, I haven't used this paint yet, so it's not super watered down and saturated or dark yet. So I'm going to start with a lighter orange on one side, and the more I add water to my paint, the darker the paint is going to get, and I'll use that darker orange value on the other side. So, and you might notice that as I paint over the crayon with the watercolor, it doesn't smear, and that's because the crayon has wax in it, and the wax is resisting the water paint. So my paint is already starting to get a little darker the more I add water to it. Another way to make the paint look a little bit darker is to let the paint dry and then go over it again with a second coat. So I'm being careful not to get my orange color in the eyes or in the nose. Spreading this water so it's not puddling up. And you might notice it's a little bit darker already on this side now that I've loosened up this paint more. And if you wanted to make the orange look even darker or deeper in color, which I'd like to do, I'm going to add a little bit of red to this darker side. And it'll blend in with the orange since it's still pretty wet. I'm going to paint the stem next. And I could choose green or brown or maybe even mix them together a little bit on the stem. A little bit of green and a little bit of brown. I think I might paint the mouth and the nose and the eyes around the pupils a black color. Now because I haven't used my black yet, it's going to look gray. I haven't put a whole lot of water in that color yet. But the more I add water to it and stir it up a little bit, the darker it's going to get. Now because I painted black around the pupils, I'm not going to paint those pupils yet because I want them to be yellow. And if I start to add yellow right now, it's going to turn greenish because it'll mix in with the black a little bit around it. So I'm going to move to my background, and I want to show you what the lids of these watercolors are actually for, other than just covering the paints. They're also great for mixing colors. So I want to mix a little bit of a purpley blue kind of sunset color from my sky. And I could mix in my tray on my watercolor pan. And I can also mix my colors as I paint. So if I paint some blue in the sky and while it's still wet, go ahead and add some purple. That's called wet on wet painting. And I can also mix both colors together in my tray to make a blue-violet color. For the ground, I want to mix some browns and some greens together. And I also want to have a value change like I have in my pumpkin, dark to light. So I'm going to start out with some green and so I want to add a combination of brown and green in my foreground here. I'm going to do a little wet on wet painting. And you can see the colors kind of blend into each other as I paint them. While the green is wet underneath the brown, they blend in real nicely together. I do want to go a little darker, more brown under my pumpkin so it looks like it's planted down on the ground, sitting on the ground. So to go a little darker, I could mix in just a little bit of black. A little bit goes a long way. I'm going to spread that out a little bit. Lighten it up a little bit with some water. And then add some green as well. And I think I'm ready now to go back and add a little color into the eyes. Make sure my brush is really washed out before I dip it in this yellow. I think I might call this character Scaredy Squash, since technically a pumpkin's a squash.